Welcome to The Awakening. My name is Israel Basha, and I am your host. Today's segment is titled Black Lives Matters. I have received emails from listeners, and today I'm going to respond to those emails utilizing a mature and literary approach. We're all adults here. Yes, there is some offensiveness to some emails, but because of our maturity, we're going to respect these emails because I believe they are of great concerns of the heart. Let's begin. America, let's talk about it. Welcome to The Awakening. My name is Israel Basha, and I am your host. The writer writes in his first email, "Why are black people angry with whites? Not all white people are bad individuals." My response to you, writer, white people, this is true. Not all white people are bad people. Yet those who are so-called good white people are hiding behind the veil of those so-called bad white people instead of fighting for equality and justice. Now, there are those white Americans who marched on side of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and fought on side of the Freedom Riders. In honor of those individuals, I believe that justice prevailed because of their help. But white people, the fight is not over. Pick up your torch, get back in the ring, for there are 12 rounds in this fight. Or have you forgotten it was the African descent woman in America that helped liberate the white woman from oppression, freeing her from her four walls, and enabling her to work outside of the home? The 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution granted American women the right to vote, a right known as women's suffrage, and was ratified on August 18, 1920, ending almost a century of protests. Have you forgotten, white America? It is, in my opinion, though, as an African American male in America, that we are in an abusive relationship. White people are the men and blacks are the women. And the abuse is so violent that blacks are afraid to speak out on the abuse. Or due to such extensive violence, black Americans are beginning to blame themselves for being abused, much like an abusive relationship. Wouldn't you agree? Welcome to The Awakening. My name is Israel Basha, and I am your host. Another writer writes, "Why don't black people trust white cops or officers?" And I find it very intellectual that this writer does know that there is a difference between a cop and an officer of the law. My response to you, writer, white people. According to a study done by The Guardian, young black men were 9 times more likely than other Americans to be killed by police officers. According to the findings of this Guardian study, it recorded a final tally of 1,134 deaths at the hands of law enforcement officers. Now, despite making up of only 2% of the total population, African American males between the ages of 15 and 34 comprised more than 15% of all deaths logged this year by ongoing investigations into the use of deadly force by police officers. The rate of police-involved deaths was 5 times higher than white men of the same age. Also, according to Mapping Police Violence, police killed 1,143 people in 2018 alone. Black people were 23% of those killed, despite being only 13% of the population. Why are white people angry, racist, and express such bigotry? Is the question you should be asking. It is my opinion that the police department should have a quarterly psychological evaluation for the mental state of white police officers, and if there is a history of white supremacy in their family and upbringing, that officer should be denied to carry a badge. What you have done is made a criminal-minded individual legal to commit murder and get away with it. This writer writes, why do black people destroy their own communities in riots? My response, white people, this, like so many other traits, are either learned behavior or taught behavior. The New York City draft riots of July 13th through 16th in 1863, known at the time as Draft Week, were violent disturbances in Lower Manhattan, widely regarded as the white working class individuals who were not pleased with new laws passed by Congress. The laws that year were to draft men to fight in the ongoing American Civil War. The riots remain the largest civil and most racially charged urban disturbance in American history today. Initially intended to express anger at the draft, the protest turned into a race riot, with white rioters, predominantly Irish immigrants, attacking African Americans throughout the city. The rioters were overwhelmingly white working class men, mostly Irish or Irish descendants, who feared free black people competing for their jobs and salaries and becoming independent instead of dependent. The official death toll was listed at either 119 or 120 individuals. Conditions in the city were such that the Major General John E. Wool, commander of the Department of the East, said on July 16th that martial law ought to be proclaimed, but I have not a sufficient force to enforce it. Therefore, looking back on history, when there were no resolution to a problem, white America resulted into rioting and looting, forcing the city to change their laws. Unfortunately, this act of rebellion seems to only work for white America. Another writer writes, what about black on black crime? Why do blacks kill each other? My response, okay, white people, I'll play along. According to the FBI database, the most heinous acts of violence were done by white individuals. White people. I mean, let's be honest here. Serial rapists, serial killers, serial kidnappers, serial pedophiles, serial etc. These labels were first given to white America. And furthermore, when it comes to the same race criminal activities, white on white crime historically cannot be measured. Serial killers in many incidents tend to target individuals who remind them of someone they know. And that someone is most likely to be a mother or a father figure. Unfortunately, they tend to practice on innocent civilians before building up the courage to face their own fears, their true target. And sadly to say, it was an abuser in their childhood. With that said, every race has a crime issue within their own geographic environment. Black on black crime, white on white crime, Mexican on Mexican crime, Asian on Asian crime. No one race owns the patent to criminal activities. This writer writes, why does Black Lives Matter? Doesn't all lives matter? My response, To answer these questions, allow me to give you some history first. Black Lives Matter is an international activist movement originating in the African American community that campaigns against violence and systematic racism towards black people. Black Lives Matter regularly holds protests speaking out against police killings of black people on a broader issue such as racial profiling, police brutality, and racial inequality in the United States criminal justice system. In 2013, the movement began with the use of the hashtag Black Lives Matter on social media after the acquittal of George Zimmerman in the shooting death of an African American teen, Trayvon Martin, in February 2012. Now, to answer your question, of course all lives matters. Because all lives are not ours to take, especially when the Most High is the creator of all life and all living things. The reason that it is said that Black Lives Matters is all lives are not taken, where there is no justice for taking a life, of course. You see, a black African descent American woman does not cry for the death of her son or daughter because a white police officer killed him or her. She cries because there is no justice for the murder of her child or her children. The killer could have been white, black, green, yellow, orange. It does not matter. What matters is her black child's life. And the fact that justice evades her and other black mothers like her. The writer writes, if the black crime rate isn't so high, tell me why there are so many black people in the prison. My response, first, I never said the black crime rate isn't so high. I never said crime isn't high in any race. But to answer your question, white people, other than injustice to blacks not getting a fair trial over the course of history, thank God for DNA and the Innocent Project. Allow me to ask you a different question. If there weren't so many crazy white people in America, then why are there so many whites in mental institutions? Did you know that the birth of the mental asylum, the first hospital in the United States, opened its doors in 1753 in Philadelphia? Who do you think occupied that facility? And another well-known fact, the first prison in the United States of America was built in the same location in Philadelphia in 1790. When the Walnut Street Jail added a new cell house to its existing jail and devoted the new cells to the confinement of convicted criminals. Now, who do you feel were the criminals during that period? I like to go on record and thank my listening audience for emailing me questions of the heart and allowing me to address them on air in a non-biased and professional manner. Thank you, because your opinion matters. America, let's talk about it.
That they may have an opportunity to live in a country where the Constitution covers them the same way that it covers the white children. Enough is enough.
This is like an abusive relationship.
Their reaction is just like any other American. They felt like justice was not served. Welcome to the House of Asha, another moment where time has stood still for the African American community.
We tend to place people in positions to where we cannot reach.
The Awakening live stream is a Dallas-based podcast which embarks on current events, hot topics, religions, politics, and relationships. The Awakening live stream is an affiliation of the HOB House of Marshall Incorporated and Unique Products by ME. If you wish to comment on the episode, be on the Awakening live stream, or just have podcast suggestions, please do so by the following. You can email the Awakening live stream at gmail.com or the Awakening live stream at yahoo.com. Or simply call and leave a message at the following number, 214-924-9023. All calls and emails are subject to be played or read on air. We look forward in hearing from you, and we value your opinion. Thank you from all of us.